My name's Jane Petrie and I was the costume designer on season 2 of The Crown. These are notes on a scene. When you're designing costumes for The Crown, one of the sort of balancing acts, that sometimes you're being historically accurate and sometimes you're designing something fresh and new. But this is one of the cases where we were historically accurate and we were as close as we could be to what Elizabeth actually wore when the Kennedys came to visit. And it's a Hartnell gown that we see in an earlier scene when she goes to choose it at Hartnell's studio. What this dress says about Elizabeth in this scene is that she's still a little bit stuck in the earlier fashions, and Jackie Kennedy arrives in her fresh Paris fashion, so there's a sort of a clash of the two, the old and the new.
Done. For goodness sake.
Come on, it's like royalty.
Well, very funny.
So this is Jodie Balfour arriving into the palace. I think this is the first time we see her dressed full length. I wanted it to feel like fresh and clean and clear and crisp and modern and maybe Parisian, in contrast to all of the stuffy kind of frills that we had on the Hartnell gown for Elizabeth. When I saw the rehearsal, it just didn't look finished. It didn't look like she was arriving. It was all about the arrival and the freshness and the impact of her walking through the door from the outside. I wasn't really seeing it with just the dress on its own, just a simple dress. And I made this at lunchtime, which is why, embarrassingly, there's a little bit of a crinkle here, and this isn't ideal there. And I think I had 45 minutes. Jumped back in the car and came back down, and we got it on her. I needed to say what I needed to say for the narrative, and then we see the dress later on without the shawl. So we deliberately had 2 blue dresses. There's a line in the script where I think it's Philip, somebody describes her as icy. So that felt naturally that was the right colour, and then the colour that Elizabeth's dress was accurate. So the 2 blues kind of arrived. I didn't feel like I imposed that on the script.
Done.
This character here in the background, she is very much dressed as though she is part of the American contingent. That is a very, very modern outfit for the royal household. And her hair and makeup, you can see she's a little bit more fashionable than, say, this lady here or this one here. Her dress is very, very modern, and you see it's quite sort of high-waisted here. This sort of quite cold pink, and all of the embroidery just has a different feel and a different tone to the kind of golden colours that we used for a lot of the older establishment types that surrounded the royals. Here is lots of golden sort of warmth, and then this kind of cool, contemporary, modern pink that came in. These sort of Swarovski crystals, you can see them all along here and all around here. If you see in this dress, there are sort of flounces and gathers all around it, and then if you look at this woman over here who's representing modernity for us, the contrast is quite clear. It's clean and simple and fresh, and it's sort of cluttered, but it's very 50s. And we're into the 60s now. So here's Philip. He's one of the best dressed men, actually. If his arm was straight, you would see that there's always just that right amount of shirt showing. He always had a very straight, clean, crisp... Oh, hang on, this guy's got the same. I think if I'd noticed that at the time, I might have changed that, because that's a very Philip thing. Philip's just always spotless and immaculate and appropriately dressed. So the differences with Philip's tuxedo is sort of a wider 50s collar you've got here. The reveres are here, and it's sort of quite 50s. And then you would have on JFK, his will be a bit narrower and a bit more 60s, just a little bit narrower in here. So Philip kind of, some of his jackets and the 50s detailing is something that he stuck with, and you'll find that he's pretty similarly dressed in the 80s, 90s, even now. This is I think he's reached his optimum lapel here.
Gosh.
In contrast to Philip, we've got Michael C. Hall here, who's playing JFK, but his collar of his jacket is just that bit narrow and a bit more 60s, notched lapels here. His shirt was a little bit plainer, I've just remembered that, whereas Philip's is a bit crisper and a little bit more heavily starched in a sort of conservative English way, and Kennedy's a little bit more relaxed.
President first.
So here we can see how much jewellery Elizabeth's got on. Look, 1, 2, 3 and 4 if you count each earring, I suppose. She's putting on a big show, there's a bit of power, she's asserting herself here, and Jackie is very relaxed with one really simple, elegant diamond. Just one statement piece that makes her outfit just right.
Her Majesty.
No curtsy. No curtsy.
Mrs. Kennedy. Your Grace.
And there you go, simple earrings in contrast to Elizabeth. The simplicity of it is very fresh compared to the sort of fussiness and busyness of the earlier designs that Elizabeth has.
Your Grace.
Your Royal Highness.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Good evening, Your Royal Majesty.
Oh, dear. Oh, for goodness sake.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
So you can see the back of Jackie's dress here. There's a sort of an attached cape which is attached to the back of her dress, which is under there just like that, and then this sort of drops off. So it highlights from the front. It means that it's not super plain at the front, and there's when you see the back of the cape, there's a little bit of movement, and it's not just a straight tube. So it was a bit more interesting to look at.
Your Grace.
Did they not get the protocol sheet?
Yes. You obviously didn't read it.
Yes, well. Shall we?
Jackie.
Where do you think she's going?
Lord knows.
Mrs. Kennedy.
I feel like that went wrong in about 10,000 different ways.
For Kennedy's shirt here, you can see it's got a very, very fine sort of rib in the cotton, and the piqué of Phillips, you can just pick it up. There's a little kind of in the weave. It's the type of cotton weave that's very, very traditional, and Kennedy's feels, again, it's more fashionable. It's more of the 60s and less conservative and less stuck in tradition. And look at Phillips, perfectly tied bow tie there, not a crinkle.
I've seen worse, but I'm not sure when. Just a drink.
Please.
Sorry, sir.
Bloody shambles.
With the Crown, the characters, everything sort of takes place, usually I get one hit. If the Queen has a meeting with the Prime Minister, then the next time that she meets with him, it might be in a different house, where she would have a different outfit, or it might be the following year and you don't see her wearing the same thing twice. I thought, oh God, it feels quite contrived and it's quite theatrical, but then when I spoke to this dressmaker, who had made the clothes for the Queen, said that's exactly how they do it. They have to, because she has to be seen from a distance. She can't be dressed in the same colour as the town hall that she's standing in. So it's very theatrical in reality as well.